The anime is about a 27-year-old salaryman named Arata, who is unemployed and trying to get himself a job. But even after several interviews, he fails to get one because of one dent on his resume. Arata as a fresher joined a company, which he left only after 3 months. This leaves a terrible impression on his interview. And because of being rejected by several companies, he has developed a habit of smoking and drinking. After failing yet another interview, he joins his friends for dinner. To them, he has lied about being an employed person. This is to make sure they see him as a contributor to society instead of a lowly human. After dinner, on his way home, he receives a call from his mother. She asks him about his interview, and on knowing yet again he didn't make it, she tells him, from now on he will not be receiving a monthly allowance. And this made Arata freak out, and yell at her, that with his part-time job, he cannot survive for long. Arata starts wondering how did things end up like this. On his way, drunk Arata comes across a man named Rio, who works for a laboratory known as ReLife. After observing his actions and personality for the past year, they have picked him as a candidate for their experiment. During this 1 year, all the living expenses incurred will be paid by the company. And in the end, if the experiment is a success, they will also introduce him to potential employers. This is a very lucrative offer, so Arata asks what this experiment is about. He gets to know that after swallowing this pill he will look younger, and for the whole year starting this spring, he just has to attend high school. Arata has already been living a suffocating life, and so he decides to give it a shot, aiming to get the job after enduring this experiment. The scene shifts to the next morning. Arata wakes up and goes to the washroom, where he notices he really did become younger. Soon after, Rio comes in with all the luggage, and along with it, he briefs Arata on the school he will going. It's Aoba High School, and he will be attending as a third-year student. Before signing the contract, Rio tells him, in this experiment, they will be seeing if he stays like a pathetic loser or uses this opportunity to get up and change his life for the better. Arata knows it's just 1 year of enduring high school and then he will land a job. So he signs it. The scene shifts to the school. Arata enters his class. He quickly gets himself a seat, but then a girl informs him that students have to sit as per their allotted seats. Arata is a bit embarrassed, and the fact he is using formal speech out of habit is also strange in high school. He takes his seat and tells himself he has to start speaking casually to avoid looking weird. He eventually finds out that Rio is also attending this school. After the homeroom teacher arrives, they begin with the class introduction. The first one is Rio. From this, Arata finds out he also attended this school last year as well. After Rio, we get to know about a girl named Chizuru. From the gossip, Arata finds out she is an introvert but was top of her class in the previous year. Arata is questioning his intellect and wondering if he should really be around such bright young students. He has a feeling that this year is going to be torture. He is so lost in his thoughts, he doesn't even realize his chance has come. He stands up in a panic, but smoothly introduces himself to the class. After all the introductions are done, the teacher announces a surprise test. Arata is panicking and starts looking for supplies in his bag. But he is having trouble, so the teacher comes asking to show her his bag. From it, she finds a pack of cigarettes, and in a shocked tone asks, "What is this?" Arata is confused to see her reaction, and tells her it's just some cigarette. But when everyone starts looking at him, he realizes he is a high school student, and immediately apologizes to the teacher. The teacher confiscates it, and tells him to meet her after school. The first impression Arata has given is that of a delinquent, and because of this everyone wants to stay away from him. He wants to improve his image, so he hopes to get good marks on this surprise test. However, he didn't bring any supplies. But then, a girl named Reena let him borrow hers, and after finishing the test he thanked her. Arata notices her coughing pretty heavily, and asks why she didn't take a day off. He finds out from a boy named Olga that today's test will determine who will be the class representative. And Reena is a competitive person who has been class representative as well as secured top rankings in her class for both first and second year of high school. This time, because Chizuru is in the same class as her, who was the top scorer in the whole grade, Reena simply doesn't want to lose to her. After school ends, Arata can't believe how pathetic he is. He can't solve a single question. As he is about to leave, the teacher stops him and reminds him about meeting her at the faculty office. In the room, he gets scolded by her. She tells him he is too young for such bad habits and that she cares for his health. And if he don't stop now, it will be tough to stop later. Arata asks her age, and she tells him it's 24. Arata can't believe he is being scolded by someone 3 years younger than him. She asks if he is looking down on her just because she is so young in her profession, and Arata says it's not like that. He actually admires her for being so young and having a proper job. He can understand how much hard work she had put into achieving it. The teacher thanks him but says she will not be flattered by this and wants an apology letter the next day. On his way home, Ryo comments on what a pathetic first day it was. Arata asks Ryo's true identity. If he's a grown-up or he is a normal high school student. Ryo says he is a grown-up. He has a supporting role, who will help him if any need arises as well as report his every action to the headquarters. Arata asks what about the previous year and Ryo says he was in his training period. Even as a support, he is still a grown-up and had to adjust to the student life. Arata understands this, but asks why he couldn't be in the second year. Being a third year is tough. Everyone has already made friend groups, and they also have to prepare for college entrance exams. This is the toughest year for a high schooler. But Ryo asks why it wouldn't be. The objective of ReLife is not to give him a comfortable start. It's to rehabilitate people like him. He also mentions to not depend on him. He will be on the back line supporting him only. The scene shifts to the following day at school. Based on yesterday's result, Olga and Chizuru are first-term class representatives. And as for Arata, he failed all the subjects and is required to take makeup tests and keep taking them until he gets more than 50 in every subject. He is devastated about this, but then notices Reena with a pissed face. Olga tries to make her feel better by reminding her she had a cold, because of which she wasn't able to give her best. But Reena says she doesn't want to hear that as an excuse. Chizuru is better than her, and that's a fact. Olga asks her why she can't be cute. He is just trying to cheer her up. But Reena says she doesn't want to be cheered up, and she tells Olga he must be glad because now he doesn't need to work with her. Olga is confused and asks why she is even saying this. He never thought that. Arata, seeing this, kinda suspects the real reason Reena is upset. Olga asks Arata's results, and on knowing he failed all and scored 4 on maths, they are simply disgusted. Olga decides to help him, and hearing this, another girl named on requests to join them. She also failed and got a 2 in maths. When it's lunchtime, Olga invites Reena to eat together in the cafeteria, but she refuses and says she is going to eat with Anoka. In the cafeteria, An asks Olga if he and Reena are dating, because they seem very close and also they wear the same earrings. Arata didn't notice this, but yes, he is also eager to know the answer. However, Olga refuses. He shares they are childhood friends, that's all. As for the earring, the story behind this is that in first year of high school, his brother insisted him to pierce one of his ears. And since the earrings came with a pair, she wanted the other one, and was for some reason she was happy. But that's all, they aren't dating, and if Reena heard this she would be pissed. Both of them can't believe how dense he is. They tell him to spend more time analyzing others' actions, not just studying. Just then, Arata notices Chizuru having an argument with the staff. He goes to her asking what happened. Chizuru, not remembering Arata's name, calls him the cigarette guy. The thing is, Chizuru hasn't brought money for the food. Usually, she uses her silver pin to buy free meals. However, since this term, she just became a class representative. It will take a day for her to get her silver pin. Arata lends her money and tells her to pay back whenever she likes to. But Chizuru refuses, asking why a high schooler is so casually lending a large amount of money to someone he doesn't know. She says it's like he is a grown-up. Arata kinda panics and says it's fine, he just happened to have extra money. Chizuru takes it and thanks him. She promises to pay back tomorrow. For some reason, Arata's heart is beating rapidly. but then scolds himself and reminds himself she is a high schooler, how he even have this feeling. Upon returning to his seat, he tells both of them what happened, and Olga shares that with Silver Pin, you can eat meal at the cafeteria for free. Not only that, but you also get a commute allowance, tuition exemption, and all sorts of perks. After this, they exchange contacts, so Olga can share materials as well as the date and time of their study sessions. The scene shifts after school. Arata goes to the faculty office to hand over the apology letter. But there he has an encounter with Chizuru. She doesn't remember his name, so she calls him the 1,000 yen guy. Arata requests her to not call him weird names and just remember it's Arata. Chizuru says she'll do it from now on, but asks him how come he knows her name. Even during lunch, he knew her name already. Arata says he remembered from the introductions. Chizuru finds it weird. How come he is bad at studying but good at remembering names? He is pretty weird. Arata is hurt and requests her to not always say what she is thinking. Chizuru says she'll try. He asks her what she is doing here, and she tells him she came to get her silver pin and also had some questions regarding the exams. Arata is surprised to see she is so serious even though the year has just started. Chizuru asks if this makes her a boring person. Arata apologizes and says he didn't mean it that way. She shares that even at this age she doesn't have any close friends. She never thought this was a problem, but apparently, society does. She kept thinking she needed to change but didn't know what to do. She asks Arata if she is really that unapproachable, that no one wants to be friends with her. Arata with all honesty tells her she is. But he says if she smiles a lot more it can change. Chizuru tries to, but Arata freaks out. He suggests her to not smile like this or she'll be making enemies. Before leaving, Chizuru asks Arata if she can have his number, she wants to be his friend. She doesn't want to stay friendless, so she requests him to help her with this. Arata promises her he will. Seeing this, Ryo is happy with the progress. At home while studying maths, Arata receives a call from Ryo, who requests him to be nice to Chizuru. He was in the same class as her, and saw her all by herself throughout that year. But he does tell him, anyone who knows him will forget about him. Also not to mention again, if he tells anyone about ReLife, the experiment will be stopped, and he will be back to his original self. Arata says he knows it. Just then, he receives a message from Chizuru, thanking him for the 1,000 yen and promises to return it by tomorrow. She even sends a cat sticker. He tells her it kinda looks like her, but then Arata starts wondering if he went too far, because he didn't mean it in a bad way. And then he receives a message from her saying meow. He finds her weird but cannot ignore how cute the reply is. The scene shifts to a few days later at school. Arata receives a letter from Chizuru, inside which is the 1,000 yen presented in a very creative way. Later in the class, he asks her what this is. And she says it would be boring to return it simply, so she searched online finding interesting ways to fold money. He thanks her for returning it and gets back to his seat. When the makeup test results come up, both Arata and N have failed all of their tests. Reena comes asking what happened, and Olga tells her how much burden they have put him under. Both of them don't study and gossip all the time. He is also about to tell Reena how they wanted to know if they are dating, but Arata stops him and asks how he can even tell her about it. Both of them can't believe how hopeless he is. Just then, Chizuru comes and reminds Olga about meeting the teacher in the faculty room. She notices the result and brutally tells Arata he is really dumb. Arata promises he is trying his best. Since Chizuru has a habit of calling everyone formally, Olga encourages her to call him by his first name. And when Chizuru does that, Reena is shocked. Remembering Arata told her to smile frequently, Chizuru does that while looking at Reena. However, it ends up backfiring, and it shows as if she is trying to pick a fight with her. Arata does tell Reena that Chizuru is just bad at smiling. The scene shifts to the fitness test. The boys are the first one to go, and very clearly, Olga isn't athletic at all. Because he only managed to record 2 meters and throw ball, Arata can't stop laughing at him. But when it's his turn, he manages to do only 1. On top, he ends up getting a cram and a stiff shoulder, all because for years he didn't do any sports. On the other side, the girls are doing their own fitness test. And the one who is very noticeably good is Anoka. Olga shares that she is the captain of the volleyball team. Despite seeing her as her rival, Reena is really close friends with Anoka. And seeing their friendship expressed physically, the scene kinda pleases Arata. But then, a boy gets pissed at him for lusting over Anoka. Arata asks who is that, and Olga tells him it's Aki, and he and Anoka are childhood friends. On the other side, Chizuru calls Reena by calling her the girl who came second. But Reena gets angry and tells her to use her name. However, on knowing she doesn't remember, and seeing that creepy smile, it makes Reena angry. But she calms down and introduces herself. After Chizuru leaves, Reena wonders if all this time she was the only one thinking they were rivals. It almost makes her look stupid. For the next hour, the fitness test keeps going, but during it, Arata ends up hurt and like a princess is taken to the nurse's office by another student named Nobu. The scene shifts at night. Rio, while working on his daily report, is really impressed with the progress Arata has been making. Getting along with his classmates and making friends group in such a short period of time is a great achievement. But we also notice how there is another test subject file on Rio's desk, which is categorized as a failure. A few days later, on the way to school, Arata notices Chizuru and goes to greet her. On noticing the injury, Chizuru finds it weird how slow his body heals, just like a grown-up. At school, while they are talking, Reena looks at Chizuru and notices she is smiling properly. This means all this time, what Arata said about Chizuru not being able to smile was not true, and it's just that she was just mocking her. Reena interprets that Chizuru is the type of girl who acts nice around boys, which makes her even more furious. At lunch, Reena is thinking about how Anoka is better than her in fitness and Chizuru is in academics. She is the only one seeing them as rivals, and they don't even bother with her. But Anoka is an excellent friend, but she cannot say the same for Chizuru. She despises girls like her. Eating alone in the cafeteria only to pretend she is a lonely girl and starving for boys to hit on her for attention. On the other side, yet again, both of them failed on their makeup test and Olga is losing confidence in his teaching skills. At this rate, they would have to hold study sessions throughout the Golden Week. Olga wonders if they should invite Chizuru as well, so she can help them and speed up their studying. He decides to call her, but Arata stops him and says it's better without her. Olga's surprised, asking what's the reason? However, it's only An who seems to realizes it's actually Reena Arata is worried about. But Olga, being dense, tells Arata he's jealous and doesn't want any other male to getting close to Chizuru. But Arata refuses and assures he will pass without her help. The scene shift at home. Arata asks Chizuru if she doesn't have any friends to eat lunch with. But she asks him why he is asking this question when he knows she have no friends. She asks if he is mocking her. Arata apologizes, and Chizuru forgives him by sending a sticker. She tells him he doesn't have to worry, because she is soon going to make friends. She has been getting along with Reena. Arata wonders what's really happening. Because he can tell by looking at Reena's face there's no way they will become friends at this rate. But he feels bad for her being alone. So he decides to ask for someone who is just alone just like her. But Rio refuses, saying he cannot meddle with other students. He instead asks Arata why he doesn't invite her. But Arata says there's a reason. Rio tells him that until now he is glad with his progress. He is able to understand others' people's emotions around him. It's one of his strengths and is able to take action. Arata says he just wants all of them to enjoy and get along before he leaves. It's already been whole month. And still, Arata hasn't passed the retest. Olga has to go to the committee, so he has prepared a mock test for him. He tells him to finish this before heading to home. Before heading to the committee meeting, Chizuru tries to talk to Reena, but she just ignores her and leaves with Anoka. At night in the gym, their extra practice is over, and they are tidying up the gym. But then Aki and Nobu come and tell Anoka they will miss their train if she doesn't hurry. So Reena tells her to go, and she will clean up the rest. But both of them help and very quickly clean the gym. Reena is jealous of Anoka's relationship with Aki and Nobu. How close they are and wait for each other. She also could have stayed close to Oga, but this defeat against Chizuru is making her sink into darkness, making her doubt her own skills. She is starting to develop a disgust for her own self. After locking the gym, she goes to return the keys to the faculty room where she finds Chizuru inside. She notices her bag outside and all of the emotions she has piled up. All she blames Chizuru for it. She tells herself she can't let Chizuru live off easy and must make her life difficult. She decides to throw all the things in her bag into the toilet. But on the way, she comes across Arata. She starts freaking out and asks what he is doing here. Arata was giving the mock test in the study room, so he was just returning the key. He asks what about her, and Reena tries to leave, but he stops her and notices she is carrying Chizuru's bag. Reena in panic just runs away. When he tries to stop her, she is about to fall down, but Arata saves her. However, in the end, he also ends up slipping. On the other side, Chizuru hears some noise and goes to check. There she finds both of them lying unconscious. The scene shifts to the nurse's office, where Arata wakes up and the nurse asks what happened, and he tells her he slipped, that's all he can remember. The nurse praises him for shielding Reena, because of which she wasn't hurt. She has to go for some work, and before going tells him it was Chizuru who called her and brought their luggage here. Arata remembers the bag Reena had, and wonders why she had that, what she was trying to do. He recalls the time when his superior in his first job was looked down on just because she was a woman. The fact she competed with her colleagues on equal footing but yet got promoted before started making them feel bitter and often created an intentional mess for which she was the one to be blamed. To Arata, he always respected his seniors because they all were hardworking and saw each other as rivals. But after the change in their behaviors, he is wondering if Reena was also trying to bully Chizuru for the loss she suffered against her. And if that's true, he is sad to know a hard worker like her is turning into this. Soon after, when Reena wakes up, Arata just straight up asks her why she had the bag. And now, he wants her to answer him honestly, not run away like she did before. Reena confesses she tried to make trouble for Chizuru by getting rid of her bag. Arata asks why she would do that. Have she given up on her own abilities? That only harassing Chizuru is the only way to beat her. Reena asks if he's going to tell Chizuru about this. But Arata says he can hurt her more by telling it to Oga. And Arata is spot on because Reena starts requesting him to not tell Oga about this. He promises he won't, but he requests her to not trample all the hard work and trust she has built up until now. It will only make her a loser if she gives up. He wants a hardworking girl like her to not give up and keep believing in herself. She is still young, so don't rely on such bad means. But Reena gets furious and asks why he is lecturing her when they are the same age. She is trying her best, and yet gets beaten up by Anoka and Chizuru even though they don't even see her as their rival. And that the fact she mocks her makes her more furious and emotional. Arata comforts her. He has seen how much hard work she puts in, so don't say it's pointless. He requests her to not discourage herself. After some time, when she calms down, he tells Reena that Chizuru is also working hard. At this time, she was in the faculty office, which likely means she had questions for the teacher, which means there are things even she doesn't find easy. All this time, it's likely she got the wrong idea about her. She haven't really talked to her, so the next time she meets her, have a proper talk and ask her to smile. After this, Arata scolds himself for lecturing Reena like an old man. But then realizes he is a hypocrite to tells Reena to not give up when he is the one who gave up. On his way, he comes across Chizuru. There is something bothering her, that's why she was waiting. She asks why Reena had her bag. She thought about all the possibilities and the one she ended up is if she stole it, but then the subsequent question came as to why she would even do that. She made sure to smile, so she thought they were going to be friends. Arata is wondering what he should say. He wants to lie to her that Karyu was only taking care of it, but then realizes it's not right for Chizuru to stay in the dark about this. He tells her Reena took her bag so she could cause problems. She was jealous and frustrated because she lost to her, and that's why she did it. But Chizuru asks why she hates her. Does she want this silver pin? But Arata tells her that's not what she is after. Chizuru asks then what made others hate her. She has trouble understanding them, because she just doesn't know the right way to make friends. Arata tells her there is no right answer on getting along, and different people need different ways. Chizuru decides to wait so she can have a talk with Reena. But before Arata leaves, she wants to tell him something. When she saw him wrapped around Reena while lying on the floor, she felt something strange. But she decides to not tell him and bids him goodbye. But Arata isn't able to leave and hides behind a bush, and even Rio is also there. Soon Reena comes out. Chizuru just straight up asks Karyu if she is after this silver pin. Arata told her that she was trying to get away with her bag to cause her trouble for beating her. So she asked him if she gave her this pin would they be friends, but he refused. So she wants to know the reason she hates her, if the silver pin is not what she wants. All the emotions Reena has been suppressing just releases. She yells at Chizuru that yes, she hates her. She is fine with losing, but in return, she wants to be respected as a rival. However, instead of that she just mocks her. But Chizuru refuses, saying she never mocked her. Reena reminds her all the time when their eyes met, she looked at her and gave that weird smile. But then remembering Arata's advice, she asks her to smile, and when Chizuru does it, it starts making sense to Reena that all this time, she had a misunderstanding. Chizuru says all this time she was smiling so they could be friends, she never intended to mock her. Reena can't believe how awkward she is. Chizuru says she doesn't interact with people so she has trouble understanding their feelings. But right now she is trying to change herself, and asks if she will become her friend. Reena happily agrees but in return tells Chizuru to accept her as a rival. And if she holds back for it they are not friends. Lastly, Reena apologizes for what she did today, and Chizuru forgives her. Sometime later at home, Arata receives a text from Reena, thanking him for his help. On the other side, Chizuru is looking up at the internet asking why her heart felt that way. And the answer comes up, she is in love. But refuses to believe this. The scene shifts to a few days later. Arata receives a call from Olga. Since the Golden Week has started, he and An are arriving shortly at his house for the study session. Arata freaks out and starts tidying up his house, making sure to hide all the things that would reveal his identity. After a few minutes, he invites them inside, and shortly after pouring drinks, they begin their study session. 2 hours later, Arata asks for a break. Olga wonders and asks Arata how he was accepted to their school. Their school is pretty decent so it doesn't make sense for someone so bad at studies to get in. An says it was just that this year's transfer exam was easy. Noticing she is texting someone, they ask her if it's her boyfriend. They have seen how she is always on her phone texting someone. An refuses, it's not a boyfriend, it's a senior. But now that they are on the topic of girlfriend and boyfriend, An promises Olga, if he manages to get into a relationship, they both will pass this makeups. Arata also promises he will. Confused, Olga asks what's with this change of topic. He tells them they are resuming their session. Even though Arata is 10 years older than them, he doesn't mind studying like this. In fact, it's kind of fun for him. After another 2 hours of studying, they have another 30-minute break. Olga does remind them that after their makeup exams, they have to focus on midterms, which are going to be a week after. And if they fail those, they would have to take more makeups. So passing the next is a must, or they will be burdened. Arata is devastated on knowing this, but then notices on looking at his calendar. He freaks out and in panic smacks it at the wall, making an excuse there was a bug. And when Olga tries to go out to attend a call, Arata stops him saying his laundry is drying outside and he doesn't want him to see that. After the call, Olga tells them he has to go to the part-time job. The store is short-staffed, and it's an emergency. He tells both of them to complete the mock test he has prepared by the end of the day. But Arata tells Olga to take on with him. He is a boy living alone here, and leaving a high school girl is not a good idea. But Olga asks what's wrong with that, and he just leaves. So after that, Arata tries to insist on leaving, but she says she doesn't mind. After so much work Olga has put in, she wants to try their best and pass this makeup. Arata says definitely. But then she asks what's up with the calendar filled with interviews. Why does he have such markings? Arata panics and says it is for part-time job. On the other side, Rio has asked for surveillance permission, and when he listens to their conversation, he starts to panic. Back at home, An asks if he has a part-time job in front of the station at the convenience store. Arata is in panic. He says he did not anymore. She tells him she actually met him there. She unties her hair and asks if he remembers now. But the strange thing is, then he seemed much grown up, and honestly kinda cool. Arata panicking. He says it's probably because the uniform made him look older. An says she is glad that they met again in the school, it's like a destiny. She comes forward and in a seductive voice confesses that she has been in love with him since then. And right now her heart is beating heavily. Just being alone in the same room as him is making her want to do all kinds of naughty stuff. Arata apologizes and pushes her away. An asks if there is someone he likes, and the first person that comes in his mind is Chizuru. But Arata proceeds to say there is no one. Just then Rio enters the home and yells at An for making excessive contact with the subject. Eating lunch with him and even coming to his home is not allowed. An says she was only trying to support him, and right now she was teasing him a bit. From their conversation, Arata finally understands An works for ReLife. The reason she was on her phone all the time was because Rio was yelling at her for getting too close to him. He asks what's her real age and she is 25. He asks what about the love at first sight. And An says she was only teasing him. But it's not a lie that she met him at the convenience store. It was actually she who picked him as a subject, and now she is under her training period as a student. She shares a bit further that when she found him, he was a social person and helpful, but despite it was unable to get a steady job. And that's what made him a prime candidate. Rio doesn't reveal to Arata that before him there was another test subject he was supporting, but because of that subject's failure, he was given a different candidate that was Arata. And after a quick test from him, he finds out Arata is a serious, a little gloomy-looking guy, but he is honest and watches his surroundings. Which was a completely different personality from his previous subject. The scene shifts to a couple of weeks later. The midterm results have arrived and yet again, Arata has failed in all 7 subjects. And as for An, she passed all 7. Olga is surprised, considering she failed 5 subjects before this one. But only Arata knows she was just pretending to be dumb. The scene shifts after school at the faculty office. The homeroom teacher asks if he is alright. If he had some health issues or he ended up studying the wrong things. But Arata tells her he made no mistakes and this is the result. He apologizes. Well, she is at least glad that for the makeups he didn't give up and took them until he passed, and so now she thinks he'll be fine. The older version of him would have gotten sick and given up already. Arata realizes maybe he is starting to change. Just then Anoka enters. We get to know she has failed 5 subjects, and as a volleyball coach, the teacher is worried for Anoka. Because if she is busy preparing for makeup exams, how come she will prepare for the upcoming tournament? And since she is the backbone of the team, she needs to be in top form. After this, outside the room, Anoka and Arata have a talk and we gets to know she is on a sports scholarship. Usually, schools exempt such students from taking makeup, however, their school isn't that serious about sports. Arata asks if wouldn't it have been better to pick a school that prioritizes that. But because of Aki and Nobu, Anoka wanted to come here. And until now she has been enjoying it a lot. Before leaving for practice, she asks if An have a crush on Olga, but he refuses. It's something he can say with guarantee. The scene shifts to the classroom where Arata is packing up his things. Just then Chizuru returns from her committee meeting. Arata asks her if she is enjoying being with her new friends. He noticed how she had been spending a lot of time with Reena and Anoka. And Chizuru says she indeed is. She thanks him for helping her, because of this she has gotten close to them. But then she also asks him if the braided girl has a crush on Olga. Arata assures her she doesn't. And from her and Anoka's question, he kinda understands what these three talk about during lunch. He asks if wanna walk to the station, and she says yes. On the other side, at the gym, Anoka assures Reena that An doesn't have a crush on Olga. She asked Arata. But Reena freaks out and tells her she never asked for that. Anoka says, well, she wanted to make sure no one is taking her best friend's crush. Anoka has to leave for home to study, so she bids goodbye. But suddenly it starts to rain. So she heads to the club room to get herself an umbrella. But before she opens the door, she hears her juniors talking about how she gets treated differently than them. Even after failing in almost all subjects, she still gets to play in tournaments. Anoka hears someone coming and hides. And it's Reena. On hearing they are bad-mouthing Anoka, she enters the room and tells them, after everyone goes home from practice, Anoka stays for an extra 2 hours. She loves volleyball more than anything. She has trouble keeping her grades up, but she works at that also. She admits that Anoka has raw talent and it makes her jealous of her, but she also knows how much hard work she puts in, and that's why she respects her. So before you guys start complaining, maybe try harder than her. They just apologize and leave. After hearing all this, Anoka is emotional and thanks Reena for taking her side. At Aki's home, Anoka is being tutored by him. Aki asks her if he and Nobu can come to watch her tournament, but Anoka is a bit hesitant, saying they aren't that strong so it won't be that fun. But Aki says he just wants to see her. He asks if she doesn't enjoy volleyball, and when she says she does a lot, Aki says that's enough for him. On the other side, Ryo congratulates Arata on failing his midterms. But because of that only reason, he was able to have an after-school date with Chizuru. Arata says it was nothing like that, they were just walking to the station, that's all. The scene shifts on the day of the makeup exam. After the results come out, Arata has to give another one next week as well, but as for Anoka, she has passed all of her subjects and is heading straight to her practice. But the teacher, also Aki's mom, insists Anoka to rest for a few days, because for the past week, she has been studying at their home non-stop. But Anoka assures she is fine and leaves. When Arata returns to his class, Olga with a proud face asks did he fail again, and Arata with a pissed face says yes. Aki asks about Anoka, and on knowing she did pass and went straight to practice, he seems to be in a worry. On the other side, Anoka isn't able to put her best at practice because of exhaustion from her late-night study sessions, so she decides to head home, but suddenly she faints. And when she gets up, she notices Reena lying down because she ended up hurting her ankle. After examining it, she is told she would need to rest for 2 to 3 weeks. It's devastating news for Reena, and Anoka isn't able to gather the courage to console her. She apologizes, but Reena says injuries happen all the time, it's fine, nothing can be done. Anoka says the game is in 2 weeks, she can heal before that and join, but Reena says she can't. Even if she heals before that, she won't be able to do anything without practice. Anoka insists her to be optimistic, but Reena gets angry and yells at Anoka that she won't understand this because she has raw talent, but unlike her, she has to work hard. And even if she is not in the team, it won't affect it at all. As long as she is there, the team will win. Anoka gets a glimpse of her past and runs away. The following day at the cafeteria, Chizuru asks Anoka what happened to her eyes. They look weird. Anoka says some dust flew into her eyes, nothing special. But in reality, all night she was crying because of what happened yesterday. On the other side, Reena has just arrived from the hospital. She informs the teacher that it's a sprain, and a maximum of 2 weeks of rest is needed. The teacher is happy to hear it. She can heal and make it to the tournament. But Reena refuses. She doesn't want to take part in a tournament without practice because she'll be dragging the team down. This was going to be her last tournament, but this is it. From today on, she is retiring from volleyball. On the way, Anoka sees Reena returning from the faculty room, but doesn't talk to her and walks away. After school ends, she tries to gather her courage to speak to her, but isn't able to. Aki, seeing all this, wants to help her, but Nobu says it's Anoka who should do something, not them. In the class, Olga asks Reena if she isn't going to the practice, but she says she has to study, so she'll be staying for some more time. So Olga says he is also going to stay then. He asks Arata to stay, but today, Arata has to go somewhere, so he refuses. But in reality, he just wants to give Olga and Reena some alone time. An hour later, Reena is wondering why Olga isn't leaving. It's not like he knows about her injury because she hasn't told anyone in the class. She wants to go home, but she also doesn't want him to see her dragging her foot. So while he is doing his work, she decides to leave from behind. But when she says she is done with her work, Olga says he is too, and insists on going home together. In a frustrated voice, she tells him to go ahead without her. He asks what's wrong with her, why so grumpy. He holds her hand and tries to stand her up, but he ends up hurting her, and as a result, falls down. Reena gets angry at him and tells him to leave already. On finally understanding her leg is hurt, Olga asks how he can leave her when she is like this. He cannot carry her because he is weak, but he can at least give her a shoulder. Reena finally agrees, and as they walk down the stairs, she asks herself why she is so arrogant and short-tempered. She was so rude to Anoka that she might not even talk to her again. She really hates herself for all of this. The scene shifts to a few days later at the cafeteria. Chizuru is searching for why friends acting weird, she needs help. It's been quite some days, and she has noticed something weird going on between Reena and Anoka. Even Arata is wondering what's with this awkward atmosphere. He is at home, when he receives a message from Chizuru telling him she is outside his home. Arata freaks out because it's so sudden, and she keeps sending him Hello Kitty messages. He quickly fixes his home and opens the door. He asks what is it? And Chizuru says there is a problem, and it was too long for her to write in a chat. So she figured visiting would be appropriate. But Arata asks why not just call him. Chizuru hasn't called any friends, so she totally forgot about it. He tells her to not feel bad and invites her in. Chizuru sits down, but Arata starts freaking out. Because it didn't cross his mind that Chizuru is still in high school, so visiting a boy's home must be giving her anxiety. He wonders if he should give her an excuse to leave home. But then again, she is dense like Olga, so it's probably fine. He gives her some juice and then receives a message from An, wishing him all the best. Arata gets furious as to why they are watching him. It's creepy. He asks Chizuru what's the issue. She says it's about Anoka and Reena. It's weird to her, how they were so close and now they won't speak to each other. She is wondering if he knows what's happening. But Arata also doesn't know. He is glad to see she has become perceptive. She was not like this before and now even trying her best to notice other people around her. Chizuru shares that last year there was bullying in her class. It was not pleasant to see, and as the class representative it felt like it was her job to stop it. So she told the bullies to stop it. However, the bullying got worse and the victim told her to never pry into others' lives. Until now all she had to do was put up with this, but things have become even worse. At that time, she thought it was the best thing to do, but when she stepped in, she made it worse. She really regrets her decision, so now when something is happening in another's life and she wants to do something, she isn't able to decide. Hearing this, Arata remembers his past, how he also experienced something similar. He shares with Chizuru how in his previous school, his senior was also bullied. He got all fired up and tried to help her in his own way, but he didn't realize she was maintaining her own balance, and he disrupted that. Chizuru asks what happened to her, did she transfer to another school? But Arata goes in shock on remembering what he saw. And then he sees his senior's glimpse at Chizuru and hugs her. He apologizes to her, saying, if he had only been more grown up, things wouldn't have gotten worse. But when Arata realizes what he did, he apologizes and requests her to not call the police. Chizuru says there is no reason to and she is happy to see him normal. For a second she got worried seeing him like that. She thinks it's better to not do anything before actually understanding what's happening. The scene shifts to the next day at school. Aki and Nobu are looking for Anoka, but when they can't find her at the court, they go to the club room, where they hear someone talking. Inside, there is Chizuru and Arata. They have come here to ask Anoka directly about what's happening with her and Reena. Anoka expresses she wants to play this last tournament with Reena, but because of the injury, she doesn't know what to say and can't bring herself to talk to her. Aki, hearing this, brings Reena from the class to hear what Anoka is saying. Anoka confesses she didn't want to play volleyball in high school at all. On hearing this, Reena is in shock. Anoka further shares that ever since she was little, she has always been good at sports. But because of this, the people around her started to doubt their own efforts. Even in junior high, whenever she scored, everyone acted like she was expected to score, and that kinda left her out. The reason she didn't go to a school with a better volleyball team was because she wanted to play volleyball not for the sake of competition, but for its joy. That's when she came here, hoping no one would know her, and she could just mix in. But Reena knew who she was, and even confronted her, asking why she chose this school, and why she held back during trials. She wanted her to show her true strength, and because she liked being competitive. To Anoka, it was the first time someone was overjoyed to outwork her and become a rival. If it weren't for Reena, she wouldn't have spent 3 wonderful years here. She is really grateful to her. That's why she wants to play with her in this tournament for the last time. But she got injured, and now she is refusing to. She wants to talk to her, but she is afraid she will get angry and break this friendship. Chizuru says they are good friends and should treasure that. As a kid, she transferred a lot. She'd make friends quickly but then transfer out. And eventually, she could feel her heart going numb and started wondering if there was any point in making friends and knowing them. In the end, she completely lost interest in others. So if she keeps avoiding Reena, they will get further apart, and she doesn't want them to make mistakes like her. Arata is proud of Chizuru. Anoka feels so much better and now has the strength to face Reena. As they step out of the room, everyone is right in front. Reena is about to run away, but Anoka stops her and expresses she really wants to play this last tournament with her. She knows it's a selfish request, but she wants her to come back to the team. For one last time, let's play together again. But Reena says she doesn't care anymore because she has retired. After she leaves, Olga shares that he found Reena crying the day after she got hurt. Back then he had no idea what's the situation, but now thinking back, if Reena really doesn't care about Anoka or the club, she wouldn't be crying. His point is that what she said is not how she really feels. Anoka says she is going to trust her and wait at the tournament. At home, Arata receives a message from Chizuru thanking him for coming with her, because of which she was able to say all those things to Anoka. She again thanks him by sending that love kitty sticker. On the day of the tournament, everyone has arrived at the venue, but Reena is nowhere to be found. Olga is optimistic that even though she didn't come today, she will come tomorrow, but Aki says this is a knockout tournament. This doesn't guarantee they will make it to the next match, let alone the next day. Chizuru asks if anyone knows where she lives, because if she has to drag her here, she will. But surprisingly, even Olga doesn't know. So Arata says, let's ask the teacher. Both of them arrive at the apartment. Knowing Reena won't open the door if she knows it's them, Arata pretends to be a delivery guy. And when she opens it, she freaks out and is about to close, but he stops her. Chizuru tells Reena they have come here to drag her to the tournament. But Reena says she doesn't want to. But then Chizuru asks what's about the jersey, why wear it at home? Why so stubborn when it's clear she wants to play this one last tournament? But Reena tells Chizuru she is too dense to understand how she feels, so just stop trying. Chizuru asks if she cannot understand her friends, does it mean she should not be allowed to worry about them either? Arata also insists Reena to put off her pretend angry act because he can see she wants to play the game. He knows when you've hit rock bottom, people trying to cheer you up can be really annoying. But what if someone you pushing away actually loves you? Chizuru may be awkward, but she is really worried about you. But yet again, Reena tells them to keep their nose out. So Chizuru just flicks her head and tells her she is fool. If she wants to stay home forever and throw away these 3 years of hard work and friends she made in the trash, then go ahead. Because these moments will never come back. So Chizuru once again asks her what she really wants, what's her selfish desire? Reena finally admits she wants to play. They all work so hard, but she haven't practiced for 2 weeks, and she can't just come in and expect to win. And the fact she said horrible things to others when they were being so good to her, she can't face herself. Chizuru tells her, it's all in her mind. Anoka wants to play with her, that's what's important. So Chizuru lends her hand and Reena stands up. Just then, Arata receives a call and finds out their school has lost the first set, and momentum is with the other team. After some time, they arrive at the hall. Reena apologizes to Anoka for all the things she said, and Anoka forgives her. Now that she has returned, they all play their best to win the game. But in the end, they lose the match and get knocked out of the tournament. Even though both of them are emotional, they really enjoyed it, and decides to continue volleyball even in college. Both of them thanks Chizuru for her effort, because of which they were able to experience this moment. The scene shifts to a few days later at the school. Arata asks Rio for a pill to return back to his old body. Rio asks why again. The first time he reverted back was when he wanted to quit his part-time job. But what about this time? Arata shares, he wants to visit the grave of his senpai. On Monday, it's her death anniversary. Rio asks what's wrong going like this, but Arata says, even though no one from his old company would come, he still can't risk. Rio says he will arrange the pill, but he will too come. Arata says there is no need to, but Rio explains the reason is that last year, they saw him freeze up in front of her grave. Fearing this time he might do something out of control, he doesn't want to risk that. Arata says to do whatever he wants, because either way he will watching him from afar. On Monday at the school, Chizuru, on noticing the coat Rio has brought, asks the reason for it. On knowing it's for a memorial service, she apologizes for prying. But Rio says it's totally fine, he is just surprised because she is not the one to start a conversation. In the evening at home, Rio hands the medicine. After an hour of nap, both of them revert back to their old self. They get ready and head out. By the time it's night, they arrive at their destination. Rio, out of worry, keeps on asking Arata if he is fine, and it makes Arata irritate and tells him to give some space. He is talking to his senpai right now. We go into the past, when Arata was a new hire in his company and was assigned under his senpai, Seiki, for training. She had the best sales record of any employee, and it became very clear to him because she was super hardworking. His admiration for her became stronger, because not only she was good at her job, but also she was kind and super friendly. Seeing her progress made other colleagues raise a false complaint against her. He was furious, but Seiki knew having such hate against a female worker was not uncommon. And she was glad how much Arata was worried for her, but she wanted him to stay out of it for his own safety. She always assured him she would be fine. But Arata couldn't stand the abuse, and confronted his seniors, asking how they could do such childish acts when they are grown-ups. But in the end, the harassment became worse, and then one day, the strong-willed senpai he thought she was, ended up taking her own life. He regrets if he hadn't done that, things wouldn't have gotten this bad. After the investigation went off and the office pretended as if nothing happened, he yelled at others, and quit his job. After this, he started to lose interest in jobs, or more precisely, he grew afraid to engage with people and society. But then again, Arata believes, if he had been more grown up and killed his emotions, he might have been a productive member of society. After some time on the way home, they come across two people who recognize Arata. They share they are from the same company as he was, and joined after a year. They saw him in the photo company album, and heard his name from their seniors. Arata asks do they still gossip about him. And they say it's true, the boss still brings up his story of a loser who quit after only 3 months. But also talks about Seiki as an ideal figure, and that everyone should follow her lead. How she was so devoted to her work that the only place she took her own life was in the office itself. They had no idea they were working in a black company, but then wondered if they quit they would end up in a similar one. Arata can see they look half dead already and like him are desperately hanging on to the job. But the guy says this is why he is their hero for doing something they aren't able to. It was a great thing to realize they aren't the only ones who thought this company is a messed up place. They ask if it has been tough after quitting the job. They want to know if it's hard or not. And Arata tells them honestly, he couldn't do any job for a while. And after some time, when he started looking for a job again, he had trouble explaining the reason behind quitting after 3 months. He got tired and landed a part-time job at a convenience store for daily survival. But that's the harsh reality. But even so, he is glad to quit the job. On the train, Rio asks Arata did it gave him courage for what he did, knowing there are people who admire him for his action. And Arata says somewhat. Just then Rio receives a message about the work he gave to An while he was gone. It's actually he who timed the meeting of the recruits. A few days later on the way to school, Arata is greeted by Chizuru. He is surprised and tells her it's strange to see her starting a conversation. He tells her she has started to change. Just then, An comes up and greets them cheerfully. But when Chizuru fails to remember her name, An tells her it's rude, and that it's not even hard to remember. Chizuru apologizes and promises to remember it, but then Rio comes and takes away An. He apologizes to Chizuru on An's behalf. Chizuru says she doesn't mind. It's Arata's first time seeing Chizuru talking to Rio, so he asks if they have known each other before, and while referring to Rio by his first name, she says he was last year in the same class. Arata is in shock to hear Chizuru calling Rio by his first name. Now that she has called Olga and Rio by their first name, he wants her to call him that but isn't able to express his feelings. But then asks himself if he is a kid or what. After school is over, everyone is excited because their summer vacations have started. Arata is all excited, only to realize he has to take makeup exams during summer vacation until he passes all of them. He is devastated. Olga assures him he will be staying with him because he wants to prepare for college entrance exams, so he doesn't mind teaching. Hearing this, Reena is surprised. She asks him if he will not be going to their school's college, and Olga says he will, but he also wants to keep his options open, so he will give the entrance exams. Hearing this, Reena seems to be uneasy about this. Normally it's not strange for students to start looking for universities. But this high school is affiliated to a college, and doesn't require entrance exams if you have good grades in high school. At night, both An and Rio have come to celebrate Arata on his first term completion. And they even tease him for his upcoming makeup exams. An asks if Olga hasn't realized Reena's feelings for him, and Arata expresses how dense Olga really is. Unless the rest of us do something, those two will never go anywhere. He must realize his feelings for Reena, and An suggests Rio to go after Reena and make Olga jealous. But Rio asks how can you be certain about Olga having even a bit of feelings towards Reena. But let that aside, Rio asks Arata what about him. Arata asks if he is asking him to get a high school girlfriend, and Rio says indeed he is. This limited time he has as a youth, they want to him experience all of that, and obviously, he doesn't mean anything mature, just a pure relationship that should exist among high schoolers. But Arata refuses, he isn't interested. A week later at the school, Olga asks Arata how his makeup exams went, and yet again he has failed all of them. But more importantly, Arata is wondering if Olga has even a bit of interest in Reena. So he asks him if he has ever dated anyone. After all, he is so handsome he should be able to get one if he wants. Olga blushes and refuses. Arata asks if there is any girl with whom he wants to hang out whenever he gets time, who is interesting to be with. Someone with whom he can talk about anything, and someone he don't want anyone taking away from him. A girl who he wants to hold hands with and kiss her. Olga was thinking about Reena, but when the holding hands and kissing part came he immediately refuses, saying there is no one like that. Arata says studying is important but love is also. During prep class, Olga is actually wondering for the first time about love. He starts to blush, and says he never saw Reena like that. In the evening, Olga and Arata are on the way when they come across Reena, who is with an older man. And when Arata looks closer, he is in shock to see it's one of the juniors he met at the death anniversary. He remembers how Rio told him, if anyone finds out about ReLife, the experiment will end right there. Olga is freaking out, and asks if it's not some hookup site thing. Arata says Reena wouldn't do that, and he doesn't think that guy is a bad person. But soon, they see him holding her, which makes Olga uneasy, so he ends up confronting the guy. Arata is freaking out, hoping Olga doesn't call him. Olga asks Reena who is this, and the guy comes and explains the girl got a heat stroke and he happened to see her. He wanted to call an ambulance, but she refused, so he gave her some drink to cool off, and now she is doing better. Arata is relieved to know the situation. After this, the guy tells Reena to take care and leaves. Olga can't believe what a gentleman he is. He receives a call from Arata saying he heard everything and there is no need for him to stay, so he is leaving home. On the way to the station, while blushing, Reena thanks Olga for worrying about her. But this creeps Olga out because it's so unusual for her. And as a result, she gets angry. Olga apologizes and laughs. He expresses how much fun he has whenever he is with her. Olga, looking at her hand, remembers Arata's words and wonders why he wants to hold Reena's hand and why he was so uneasy seeing her with another man. He wonders what this feeling is. And the very next day, he confesses that he loves Reena. Last night he wondered all about it, and the fact he wanted to hold her hand and didn't want her to be with another guy. He thinks he likes her. Arata is glad to hear it, and says he has to become a man and take action. There is a firework festival coming up and he has to confess to her. But Olga says she would punch him. Arata asks, what if someone else takes her away from him? Will he be happy then? And Olga realizes he can't let that happen. He needs a girl's help, so he asks on how she would want a boy to confess his feelings. She says as long as he puts his heart into it, it really doesn't matter. As for Chizuru, she has no experience, so she can't say. Olga says he has made up his mind. He will invite Reena to the fireworks festival and confess. At night, he sends a message to her. Reena can't believe he is asking her out. She starts blushing but soon realizes he sent it to everyone. She got excited for nothing. After a quick shopping for her outfit, Chizuru is very excited for the fireworks festival. And then receives a message from Reena that she is going to confess her love to Olga at the festival. He might be going to a different college, and here she was taking for granted that they would be spending more time together. So before they get separated, she wants to confess, and she wants their help to make it possible. But Chizuru finds it pointless to confess your love if you know you are going to get separated. A few hours later, everyone arrives at the festival, and they start exploring it. An seems to be a lot clingy with Arata, and there appears to be a bit of awkwardness between Olga and Reena. On the other hand, Chizuru seems to be a bit dizzy because the crowd is too much, so Rio offers his arm to prevent her from falling. But when Arata sees both of them together, he starts to feel uneasy. After some time walking, Olga and Reena find themselves alone and soon receive a message from others to enjoy their alone time. On the other side, Arata asks Rio to do something about An. She's being too clingy. But Rio says normally it would be a problem, but today everyone is here, so it's fine. Arata is surprised to hear this from someone who is so strict on rules. But Rio asks if maybe he isn't bothered by An, but by the fact Chizuru is with him. Arata blushes and refuses. Rio says it's last summer vacation for him, so he will give him some room. Back to Olga and Reena. Olga out of nowhere confesses love and it starts to freak Reena out because it's so sudden. He asks if it's a no, and Reena asks if he is serious, because she can't believe it. She came up with so many ideas to propose to him today. She has been in love with him since their first year, and asks him if he would date her. Olga freaks out, because he didn't think she would have this feeling for him. And if Arata hadn't pushed him, he would haven't realized it until it was too late. Both of them are blushing heavily. On the other side, Chizuru and Arata seems to have separated from the group, and he realizes it's Rio who set them up. And because it's too crowded, they can't really find them and move around. So Arata suggests watching the fireworks from here only. Chizuru asks him if he is friends with Rio because she has seen him talking a lot to him at school. Arata says kind of. Chizuru is amazed because he made friends with everyone easily, even though he was enrolled in April. And comparing to him, she feels like a loser. But Arata asks if she isn't surrounded by friends, who she made through hard work. Chizuru knows it and thanks him because he deserves most of the credit. And as the fireworks begin, she thanks him for coming into her life, and she is very grateful for it. Arata wonders what she meant by it, but then realizes it's Chizuru, so it's probably not like that. He is happy to hear she is grateful to him. It makes him think this ReLife is worth it, even though everyone will forget about him, including Chizuru. As the fireworks come to end, all the memories Chizuru shared until now in the third year come in front of her eyes, and we finally get to know Chizuru is the subject one, who was selected by Rio 1 year before Arata. And from her perspective, it's others who will forget about her. So the more fun she has, the more it'll hurt when she part ways. They meet up with others, and on seeing Olga and Reena together they congratulate them. After spending some time together and enjoying the festival, everyone starts to leave. Rio with on leaves and tells Arata to take care of Chizuru since their station is the same. On the way, he notices she is all dizzy, so they sit and drink some water. Chizuru shares how she is glad for Reena. At first, she thought falling in love when you know you will separate is pointless. But now seeing them so happy together, she thinks it's better to not miss this happiness. Arata also knows someday they will part, so he doesn't want to miss these memories. He tells Chizuru to make a lot of friends, fall in love and enjoy her life. He won't be there for her to cheer her on, but he wants her to live her life to the fullest. But Arata is conflicted with his feelings. He knows it's not right to fall in love with a high schooler, so he tries to convince him what he is feeling towards her is similar to that of a younger sister. Chizuru's life will go on and he won't be there. As Chizuru stands up, she seems to be still a bit dizzy, but thankfully Arata saves her. He asks if she's fine, if she won't trip. But Chizuru says she might and asks him to lend her his arm. And while holding his arm, they walk home. Even though she will forget him, Arata promises he won't, she will stay in his memories. And after this 1 year will come to an end, he will treasure this 1 year of youth throughout his life. The scene shifts to 2 years ago. We get to see the time Chizuru was having difficulties getting hired. Even though she excelled in her studies, her lack of communication ability was her biggest disadvantage. On her way home, she came across Rio, who gave her the opportunity to change her life. However, she wasn't able to, and the first year went without any improvement in her character. That's why Rio was told to move to a different candidate. Back in present, for the remaining vacation, everyone enjoys their days, and when it's time for the second term, they return to the school, and like usual take the surprise test for the class representative position. A day later in the cafeteria, as the second semester has started, there seems to be trouble at the girls' table, where Reena is asking Chizuru if she intentionally lost the class representative exam, so she can be class reps together with Olga in the second term. But Chizuru says if she had held back, she knew you would have been very furious with her. So she wouldn't do that. But Reena asks if everything is alright, then was she not feeling well during tests or something? Anoka asks if it's about Arata, because she was with him during the festival, so is it about that because of which she wasn't able to give her best? Chizuru, reflecting back, says there's so much she doesn't understand about herself. After school ends, Chizuru calls Rio, asking him if Arata is also a ReLife candidate. Rio asks why she thinks that. And Chizuru says it's just how she feels a mature aura around him, and also the way he acts. Not to mention he smokes and is far worse at academics than normal high schoolers. But Rio says regardless of Arata being a test subject or not, he cannot disclose any data. But assuming he is one, and she was to figure that out, then she would never be able to see him again. But he does say he is really surprised to see someone who had no interest in anyone a year ago is now observing others. He is proud of her and glad to see her changing. One thing he wants to tell her is, from now on her support from the second term is going to someone else, and it's on. Chizuru is speechless. An officially introduces herself, but Chizuru asks why so sudden change of support. If you wanted to do it, why not from the start of the second year? But Rio says An was in training, so she wasn't ready in the first term. Chizuru says this means Rio will exclusively support Arata, but once again Rio says he can neither confirm nor deny it. An asks Chizuru why she wants to know if Arata is a test subject or not. Is it just curiosity, or it's that there would be no need for her to suppress her feelings because he won't be a high schooler? Chizuru is in deep thought. The following day at school, since the cultural festival is coming up, the class needs volunteers to take responsibility. While the students are deciding, Olga asks Arata if he wants to do it as it will improve his school evaluation. But more importantly, he feels like Arata will come up with something amusing. Arata realizes it's been a while since someone put hope in him. He agrees to take responsibility and becomes the cultural festival officer. As for girl, it's Chizuru who is volunteering. Arata is surprised to see her volunteering, but Chizuru says he is the one who told her to make a lot of friends and enjoy her high school. That's why she is doing this. Arata is glad to see her changing for better. He is happy for her. After school, they give the report to Olga on what materials they will need, the cost, and where they can rent them. Olga wants to talk about something. Yesterday, she wanted to hang out at his place, however, he refused, which made her mad and they kinda had a sort of fight. He was actually happy for her wanting to come to his home, but the truth is, his brother has been a shut-in for a while. At his first job, he was bullied. They harassed him a lot until he couldn't go to work anymore. And he didn't want Reena to see this. But mostly, the idea of showing his brother how much he is enjoying his life. But Arata says that's unnecessary for him to think like that. If everyone walks on eggshells and acts all gloomy around him, he'll feel even worse. You should act normal in such cases. Home only feels like home because family can be themselves with each other. But Olga says what if Reena might not like this and hate it? Chizuru says Reena may be a perfectionist, but she knows better than anyone to not put her own beliefs onto others. And with enough explanation, she'll understand. Olga says he'll explain it. On the way, Arata realizes he is too like Olga's brother. He is wondering what would Chizuru think of him if she knew the real him. But then asks himself why he even cares about that. As days pass by, everyone does their part in preparing for the cultural festival. Working day in and day out, even falling asleep at the school. One day, Arata finds Chizuru sleeping. He is proud to see her working so hard, and as the wind blows in, he looks at her and tries to touch her, but stops and finally admits he has fallen in love with Chizuru. Finally, it's the cultural festival day. Everyone is getting ready and are prepared in their outfits. Reena is looking so cute in her outfit, Olga cannot resist but compliment her. And then Chizuru comes in her maid outfit. Arata starts to blush, and when she comes closer to fix his tie, he starts to feel a bit freaky. When the cultural festival starts, their class is pretty popular, especially because of boys. A lot of girls start coming in. Everyone is looking so good, Anoka insists on taking a group photo. But Arata encourages Anoka to be in the picture while he takes it. After this, he meets up with Chizuru and decides to help her in selling pamphlets. But the teacher comes and tells both of them they can go inside because most of the crowd is inside. She insists both of them go and enjoy the festival. But on the way, Chizuru wonders why she wants to know if Arata is a test subject or not. She suddenly grabs his arm. He asks what she is trying to do. If she does this, everyone thinks they are in a relationship. Chizuru asks if that's a problem. She tells him to hug her now. Arata is totally freaking out. She asks if he thinks she has an infatuation for him right now. Arata asks what's wrong and Chizuru apologizes and says she just wanted to confirm something for herself. Arata is relieved to know she had no idea what she was doing. He tells her to not overthink, and that infatuation isn't something you can decide at the moment. She doesn't have to rush. Later, after the cultural festival comes to an end, Rio asks Arata how the festival was, and Arata says he is glad to be a part of the youth once again, but he feels bad as well. When ReLife is over, everyone will forget about him. So their memories of this cultural festival will be missing the parts with him. Rio says is that why he refused to be part of the picture. But he tells him, even if those memories vanish, other things will remain. Things that would have turned out differently without him, or never happened at all. The result of his actions are visible. so he won't vanish. A few days later at the school, the teacher asks Arata what he wants to do for his college. Does he want to move to Aoba University or prepare for exams for other colleges? This is meaningless to him, but still he says he will stick to Aoba University. The teacher says it's fine, but she does warn him it won't happen unless he graduates high school. He has to improve his academic ability and earn great scores. She believes in him, all he needs to do is put more effort. After this, it's Olga's turn. Before he goes, Arata asks his decision, and he says he wants to go to Aoba University. It all thanks to him that he was able to make up his mind. Olga asks both of them, and knowing they will be going to Aoba as well, he is very excited and says he can't wait for their college time. Arata knows this won't happen, and he feels sad. At night, on his way, Rio comes and asks how the consultation went, and he tells him he chose Aoba. Rio says that even though he won't be going to college, he wants Arata to do his best to graduate, or else there will be trouble that will affect the experiment. Arata asks does he really have to go back to his old life, no matter what? Can't he go to college with everyone and grow old with them? Rio tells him it's against their rules. He told him before giving the pill that whoever remembers him will get their memories erased. But Rio tells him not to worry, he and An will remember him, so when he goes back to his old self, then they can enjoy drinks as adults and reminisce about their school life. Arata says that doesn't sound bad and leaves. At the office, An asks Rio does they really need to do this. In the case of Arata and Chizuru, since both of them are test subject, which means they will remember others, but will forget about each other. Because it's their policy that the test subject does not remain in anyone's memory. An is emotional, because seeing them getting closer, only to end up getting separated is really sad. Rio pats her head and says ReLife is all about enjoying every moment to the fullest. So they have to support them to the fullest in a way we won't regret. On the other side at Chizuru's home, she is lying down and wondering about whether Arata is a test subject or not. But then asks if there is any point in trying to figure that out. Because whether he is a test subject or not, in the spring he will forget about her. But she asks herself why she is so curious about him. Why she is feeling bad and doesn't want to lose him. The following day, Arata's class has a class photo. Chizuru asks wouldn't being in class photo cause a problem, and An says there is a different division that takes care of it. When their class turns, everyone starts to gather. Arata says he wants to believe there's a chance. That even if they forget, he'll still be in the photo and sometime in future, someone will go, wait, who is this? Even if that's all he ever becomes to them. Even if just a grain of memory is left behind, it's fine by him. A few weeks later at school, Arata is having trouble preparing for the exam, while Olga is teaching him. Since Christmas is coming up, he asks Olga if there are any plans with Reena. Olga starts blushing. He wants to take her somewhere lovely but isn't able to decide. So he needs some advice. Arata says he is not that good at understanding girls, so he says just do what he usually does. They can have fun anywhere as long as both of them are together. Olga thanks him, and asks what about him, isn't he going with Chizuru somewhere during Christmas? Arata is in shock to hear this and asks what he means. Olga asks, aren't you guys dating? Arata freaks out and says no way. Olga finds it weird because Reena told him how she saw both of them holding hands in the cultural festival, and how they were alone in the fireworks festival as well. Arata clarifies to him it's all a misunderstanding. The following day, on the way to school, when Arata notices Chizuru walking in front, he greets her, however, she just runs away. During school, she avoids eye contact and just runs away whenever they come across each other. And we find out, it's that Chizuru thinks her stupidity with regards to her emotions has grown worse lately. Meaning, she doesn't understand her own feelings anymore. That's why she tried linking arms and a few other things, but she stayed stupid and couldn't figure it out. This morning she impulsive thought of putting some distance in the hope it might help her gain a different perspective. But maybe some other emotion is springing her on. Reena asks what is it, and Chizuru says she doesn't know. Anoka tells her to think a little hard about what is it. She just can't wriggle out of this with an I don't know. She is one step away from understanding her own feelings, and they wish her the best of luck. During PE class, both Arata and Olga are struggling to run in this cold weather while the girls are indoors, playing basketball. Their Anoka asks Chizuru, why don't she go on a date with Arata? That might help her in figuring out whether she likes him or not. On the other side, Arata doesn't even misunderstand Chizuru's actions. He knows she is probably just overthinking about something. Just then, Chizuru approaches him and asks if on Christmas he has any plans. When he says there is nothing, she asks him to go out with her. She'll send details later on. At night, he receives the details from her. He then receives another message that's the love sticker she always send, but following this, Chizuru says she is looking forward to their first date. Arata starts to blush because he wasn't prepared for this. But then realizes it's Chizuru, so it's not romantic. But just to be cautious, he does share this with Rio, and Rio says it's not a problem, as it's a valuable experience from a ReLife perspective. The scene shifts to the day of Christmas. Arata is on his way wondering if there is any point to this, because in the end, all of this will become an illusion to Chizuru. He apologizes to Chizuru because of him. This Christmas will be ruined forever. After some time, he arrives at the place. And on seeing Chizuru in a cute outfit, Arata couldn't resist but compliment her. He asks what's the plan and Chizuru says she has researched all the things they can do, but isn't able to decide where to go first. Arata takes a look and says let's start with this. Throughout the day they do a lot of things, visit places, and eat all sorts of things. And yes, Rio and An are observing them. The more An sees them together, the more sad she gets. The fact both of them will forget about this day pains her. But Rio says that doesn't mean it never happened. He sends a message to Arata, and he is surprised to read it. Chizuru is deciding a Christmas present for Arata, and asks if this is better or the other one. And Arata says whatever she chooses, he'll be happy to have it. And then, he also picks a gift for her, and wishes her a happy birthday. In the Ferris wheel, Chizuru wants to know Arata's birthday, so she can celebrate it, but it was on August, so he says she doesn't have to think about that. Chizuru then says let's celebrate it the next year. Arata knows it's not possible but still says let's do it. He cannot believe so much happened this year. But every day was a blast. When he grows up he'll look back at this year as a really special one. Chizuru stands up and wants to say something but doesn't, and instead says she won't ever forget today either. Hearing this only makes Arata more sad. On the way, before dropping her off at the station, Arata doesn't want to part ways yet, so he asks if they can walk for some more time. And Chizuru agrees. Arata has realized his own feelings, but doesn't want to force it on her. He asks her what's with this sudden date. Chizuru says lately she had trouble understanding herself. She is always thinking about him, so at first she thought it would go away, but when it didn't, she tried to do things to confirm her own feelings, and all led to one thing: she wants to be with him. And after this date, she has confirmed it even further. Arata is surprised and very happy to hear it. He hugs her and confesses he too loves her. Both of them understands this relationship will never have an happy ending, but they do not want to miss this precious time. The scene shifts to a few months later at school. Now that the final exams are over, Reena is asking Arata if he will pass it because they don't want him to repeat this year. And he assures he did his best. Rio has reported to the headquarters that this ReLife was a huge success. Just a few weeks to go until Arata returns to his 28-year-old self. At night, Arata receives a call from Chizuru. She apologized for calling this late, but she wanted to talk to him, if he doesn't mind. Arata says it's totally fine, he wanted to hear her voice as well. And just like this, they spend all night talking and finally after 2 hours, bid goodnight. Chizuru is wondering how many times she will be able to say goodnight to him. It scares her how the time is running out. Finally, it's the day of the graduation. Everyone meets at the school for one last time as high schoolers. Arata thanks them and expresses how grateful he is to spend this wonderful year with them. But all of them are surprised because he managed to graduate. And with this, after school, Chizuru asks if she did it right. Just like he said, she made friends, and she enjoyed this 1 year to the fullest. So she asks can she get a hug as a gift. Arata hugs her, and promises himself he won't ever forget about her. He will keep this memory until he dies. Chizuru also knows the truth, but still says let's enjoy their college together. The scene shifts at night to Arata's home. Ryo has come to proceed with the closure of the experiment. And as per the promise, he presents Arata with a handful of potential employers. Ryo asks him what he thinks of ReLife. But Arata is thinking about how he promised to join everyone for graduation party, but will not be able to. But then tell himself his very existence was a lie to begin with, so there is no point in thinking about that. Ryo concludes the experiment with a small speech. He says during this ReLife experiment, Arata, you met a lot of people, made memories that had a positive effect on him as well as to those who he befriended. So it was a wonderful ReLife experiment, and with this pill, he will return to his original self. Before Arata takes it, Ryo thanks him for letting him and being a part of this journey. And on the other side, it's An who has come to conclude the experiment. Chizuru wonders if this time her ReLife was a success. Getting close to people only to leave them really hurts. But An says this only proves it was a success how she has changed. Soon after taking the pill, Chizuru falls asleep. An calls Ryo informing him about the job being done on her side. But as she is about to leave, she sees a marker fall and notices Chizuru's hand, on which she has written, she was in love with Arata. An starts crying because now that she has seen this, she has to erase it. She scolds Chizuru for not hiding it better. The scene shifts to a few weeks later. Arata is on his way to job. And just like promised, even though the ReLife is over, he has the memories of all the people he met. But there is one person who he cannot recall, not even one single moment with her. We get to know that when Ryo offered the jobs, Arata refused to accept them and instead wished to work for ReLife. Just like how this experiment helped him in becoming a better person, he wanted to make others achieve that. With Ryo's help, Arata has landed a job and now works as Ryo's junior. After weeks, he gets to meet his first potential test subject, and the person is none other than Oga's brother. After his meeting with him, he stops by a restaurant where his company is treating dinner to everyone. He takes a seat, but then a woman comes and tells him she is sitting here. And it's none other than Chizuru. Arata apologizes, but she says it's fine, he can sit, she just needs to grab her stuff. As she leaves, Arata notices the strap, which starts to trigger his memory. But before he can talk to her, his senior grabs him and makes him busy with drinks. After finishing his dinner, he is about to leave for home, but then he meets Chizuru once again. Both of them are waiting for the taxi, and there is an awkward silence between them. Chizuru is the one to initiate the conversation by introducing herself, and shares she works for ReLife under the research department. She heard the seniors were referring to him as a test subject, so she asks he didn't hide it. Arata says he did ReLife last year, and since he works in the support division, almost everyone knows about it, so it's not something he could have hide. Chizuru says she kept her one quiet because she didn't want people asking her about it. Arata asks does it mean she was a test subject. Chizuru says she was, but her experiment was a failure. Instead of 1, she had to do 2 years. Arata asks if she doesn't mind sharing about some of her experiences. Chizuru says her first year was horrible, but her second year was very fun. She made a lot of friends, went to a firework festival, helped in a school event, and even went on a date. Arata asks about the boy she dated, but Chizuru isn't able to remember him. She describes the person as a firework, who came into her life, lit her up, and made her a better person but suddenly faded away. She shows Arata the straps he gifted her, and the moment both of them notice each other's straps, their memories returns, and they kiss each other. If you enjoyed the recap, please consider liking and subscribing this channel. Have a wonderful day ahead.